Well. Try as they may to keep us from being back. Well, we are back for some more Bleach Soul Resonance, and we're going to talk about the sort of topic of the week, which is the release of Kenpachi, his seemingly confirmation that he is Slash. And if you want to know why I say seemingly, a lot of it does just stem from past experiences with like leaks and such. I think that you should always trend towards this is a leak, this is soft confirmation, but we won't know until we get our hands on it. Private servers, you know, posts on Twitter, posts on Facebook, posts wherever, they are reliable to a point, but I sort of operate like the truth from Dokkan Battle. If you guys, any of you also play Dokkan Battle, where he says, I won't really know until I get my hands on these things in game. So I'm going to operate as if the leaks are true, but there's a reason that I've also been collecting, you know, strike materials, right? Because I just don't know. And hey, if it doesn't end up being a strike Kenpachi, then we still just as well have the strike materials for whoever comes out after, maybe Grimmjow, maybe whoever, right? But we obviously have an elephant in the room, as he is a Slash character, and I'm mousing over Shikai Ichigo because I do not have Bankai Ichigo. So, what do I make of Strike sort of being out for this long? Well, it's an interesting conundrum, because while I have also like speculated that Strike is the weakest for a while and Strike needs the most help and yada yada yada, I do use this as like a soft issue and not a dire issue, and I'm seeing a lot of people react as though this is a dire issue, right? So the reason I say that is because as you can see, here are my scores for my elements. My Komamura and my Nemu is not quite, are not quite as powerful, but I do have Yudahara there filling in the team, right? The thing I actually have a problem with is having no Slash units at all. If you are someone who did not reroll at the start of the game, and by the way, Bankai Ichigo was essentially free. If you didn't reroll and you have Bankai Ichigo, I think that was just your mistake. And I know people don't like to hear stuff like that, but if you are ever pulling in a gacha for the first character on launch, and the reroll takes about 10-15 minutes, you should reroll, or else any resource you spend on them is a mistake. And like I said, I know some people hear that and be like, that's unfair, but if you are free to play, you need to squeeze as much value out of your account as possible, because your resources are more finite than a whale's, right? A whale's resources are their bank. Your resources are your sort of strategizing. And so when we get into the talks of sort of replacing the Slash DPS, I'm not really that fussed. For me, who was too lazy to reroll, I just took that on the chin. I don't have any like woes about, you know, Bankai Ichigo being replaced or not rerunning or not this or not that. It just sort of is what it is, right? But do I think the game can't handle another Slash character? Well, that sort of involves us like really dissecting what these teams actually need, because this is something I kind of haven't seen people talk about. Let's go to characters again. Actually, let's go to battles and go to our teams. So let's go here, and call our teams. What are these teams? What is this team actually missing? Look at these 4 teams here. We got blue, yellow, red, orange. Blue team. Toshiro is a strong DPS unit. I haven't built him, but I'd actually say that he is, if you got his weapon, if you have his core stam, he is a very powerful assist to Aizen, who is, I mean, I'll just say it, Aizen is completely broken. Momo is a powerful support character. Yellow. Gin is the strongest DPS in the game. He's probably only going to be rivaled by Kenpachi once Kenpachi drops. Tosin is an extremely strong tactics character. Definitely the second best tactics character in the game to me, though, you know, we could debate that till the cows come home. And Angiku is arguably the third best support in the game behind Urahara and yeah, I mean, actually, I don't know. She might be the second best support in the game. I think her and Momo have similar benefits if we're actually talking like power, what they offer, because I do think Momo is a bit clunky to play, and Angiku is not only a character we got for free 5-star, so her baseline power is 5-star, is like a 5 awakened. Her baseline power is not like you have one dupe. Her baseline power is 5 boundary because she is completely free. So I would argue that maybe you could say that, you know, right now Rangiku is better than your Momo, but I could see either. So, you know, she's either the second or the third best support in the game. Bankai Ichigo is arguably the third best DPS in the game. Byakuya and Urahara fill up the remaining slots as one. Urahara is the single best support in the game, period. If you could put him on every team, you would rather have him on every team than any other character. Byakuya is okay. The more I play between them, the more I think I like Byakuya. I like Tosin more than I like Byakuya, but that's also because my strike team isn't that good. That said, once I have Kenpachi, I would argue that I'm still probably going to feel like I like characters like Tosin and Aizen more than I like Byakuya. But I don't think that is a problem of Byakuya. I think that's just preference. I think Byakuya, you could argue, is just the second best support DPS in the game. It's fine. Yoruichi is a strong DPS character, but as we sort of peel back the layers onto Sajin Komomura and Nemu, I think that is more in line with where we actually see problems, and I'm not seeing people really discuss this. Replacing Yoruichi isn't really, to me, the most necessary thing in the world if we're actually talking about, oh, the next character being Strike, oh, the next character being this, next character being Grimmjow. Because I think it would have been cool, but what I was saying is that Grimmjow would actually have to be the single best character in the game and replace, and essentially carry the color. It wasn't enough that he just be the best DPS. He'd probably have to completely carry the color, because Yoruichi already does fine. Her issue is that she wants Mayuri here or Soifon here. She wants a secondary DPS more than Strike wants a completely new DPS. So while I do think it's a mistake that they're not dropping Grimmjow, and I do think that it actually has more to do with IP law and him just getting held back, I don't really think it's such a like finite issue. I think it's an issue for sure, but I'm starting to see people say things like, well, this is how you know the game is doomed. This is how you know the game is gonna die. They're pushing out Kenpachi instead of Grimmjow because they need to make money. I don't know if you guys know this, but Bleach is very popular right now. And in fact, Bleach Soul Resonance is gaining players after launch, not really losing them. Bleach Soul Resonance during the Geen summons, we literally thought this character was going to be low high. We thought this character was going to be one that no one pulled for. And the moment he dropped, suddenly the game has made a bunch more money, you know? We literally thought this was going to be like an easy skip for people. But as it turns out, people are just playing the game. Like, I don't have that much ire for this decision. I'm not ringing the panic alarm on Kenpachi dropping right now, because it's really not, we're not like, how should I say this? Yes, would it have been a great job if they went Aizen, Toshiro, Geen, Bankai Ichigo, Grimmjow, I guess, is a strike unit, then another slash unit, then another spirit unit, another blah blah blah, another blah blah blah. Sure, of course it would have, but realistically, and what we're gonna start seeing, and as I said, it's not as though I'm like, oh, this is such a good decision, I'm glad this is happening. It's not. This is not good that it's happening. But is it like a seven alarm fire or whatever? Like, no. I think with 4 typings, this is always just going to be what happens. And I think better than having a discussion around, oh, is Kenpachi just going to make slash Bankai Ichigo irrelevant? I think what we should be asking is Bankai Ichigo's character, like Kit, enough that if you don't want Kenpachi, you still have a fun and interesting, like, slash DPS? And I think for a lot of people, they do like Bankai Ichigo. But to me, I always said that Bankai Ichigo's feeling, his playstyle, feels half-baked compared to these guys. These guys feel unique and interesting. And I think Kenpachi looks like the coolest character in the fucking game already. Like, we don't even get to play him yet. And the reason I say all this is because I pulled on Toshiro, but I did not pull for his weapon, because I was like, I want to save because I think Gin is coming and Aizen are coming, and I love Gin. No one really brings up that if you pulled for Toshiro and you got his weapon and you got his core stamp, you kind of have a Bankai Ichigo and Kenpachi like moment. Because if we're being completely honest, this guy is sort of the actual DPS for Spirit. And I'm not saying that Toshiro can't put up huge numbers, but if you were actually like, if you were pulling purely for efficiency, you would have skipped Toshiro and gone straight into Aizen, and you would run Aizen, Momo, and Urahara instead, because Aizen is a monster unit who goes on every team and every account and every like place. And Toshiro is just like a really good DPS, but if we're like but like no one really cares, right? Because realistically, his says full assault, whereas Bankai Ichigo and Kenpachi are also both going to say full assault, and this character says tactic. So there's sort of like we kind of have a different like view. I kind of, after pulling Aizen, I was like, damn, I wish I could hand my Toshiro back in. That's how good Aizen is. I was like, I wish I could give you my Toshiro back. Right? But that's just sort of something I've been thinking about. The more I think about Strike Team, and the reason I bring up the Strike Team so much is because this is a team I've played a lot. I feel like a lot of people have not played with Yoruichi long enough to sort of be like, to sort of have an opinion on this. Yoruichi was my first SSR DPS, and she was also my second SSR DPS. And so I've used her more than I've used any other character on my account so far. And I really don't think we're in a hurry to replace her, even though I really would have liked a Grimmjow. You know, I said before that Grimmjow would need to carry the color. But he needs to carry the color not for Yoruichi, but for Komomura and for Nemu. Nemu is a very clunky support to me. She requires quite a bit of time on field, and she doesn't have much damage that she can do sort of haphazardly. You need her on the field to rotate in her skills and do auto attacks, and then you get her like bonus. Compare that to a character like Rangiku, who is actually aiding your damage and providing a meaningful buff, as well as Urahara, who is aiding in doing damage and providing really meaningful buffs. You start to notice it. Compare that to Sajin Kamamura, who has much higher, weirder, like unwieldy animations, as well as an ultimate that just feels a little lackluster now that we're out of the story. I said, when I got him at first, I said he has felt good for the story. But when we talk about a character, you know, now that we're in like the events, we sort of need to talk about what they actually provide. And Sojin Kamamura just feels a little awkward in his animations, and he certainly doesn't feel like, even if I invested in him, you know, infinitely, it doesn't feel like he'd be putting up Aizen numbers, right? And I don't think he's providing Aizen levels of benefits to your team, and he's not as generic. He can't go on multiple teams and things like that. So I do get the Kenpachi backlash. I'm not saying that it doesn't suck that they had to put out a Strike character, or, you know, they couldn't put out a Strike character in Grimmjow, but I don't know. This is like far less dire to me than I think a lot of people are making it out to be. For example, the 11th anniversary stream just happened for Dokkan Battle, and people are literally losing their minds because whether they don't like the animations for Super Saiyan 4 Goku, or they didn't reveal enough of what's going to actually come in part 1, or this or that, we have in modern Dokkan like a full meltdown where some of the biggest YouTubers as well are reacting the same way, and it's completely derailed any sort of excitement for the anniversary. I'm seeing people right now with Bleach Soul Resonance say they need to put out new events that we don't have, and they need to put out, you know, all the characters that we want. By the way, if Ulquieta was dropping right now, I don't think anybody would be boo-hooing Slash. Because guess what? Bankai Ichigo still has Nel to go through and Ulquieta as really, really, really hype drops for people. So at some point, he's getting axed, right? It does just suck that we didn't get a Strike character and maybe a Strike support, or a Strike character, or a Strike DPS and maybe a Strike tactics character. And I get that, but we are 2 months into this game, about 3 months into this game even, and I don't know. The colors are going to overlap for a while, right? The colors are going to overlap. We're going to see these sort of things happen. I imagine that this, at this point with the IP, is as difficult as it's going to be to sort of prove their validity, prove their worth to the Bleach IP. And as they continue to get rolling, the IP issues will be smoothened out. But they need to sort of, you know, I don't see it as like a this is a forever thing. I think this is like, do you return value to the shareholders? And I think so far we've seen that they do, right? They've seen what we do. We see people showing that with their wallets. We see that them showing that with the quality of character and kit and events they put out. And to anyone who's like, they need to essentially rework the entire system and get like a new like event in already. We need roguelike events and this and that. I'm like, we kind of like don't. You know, for example, when Uma Musume first came out, we had no auto mode. So to do your dailies in Uma Musume on global, you needed to spend about an hour or two just running the races to get your dailies done. And I don't think the auto mode, maybe the auto mode is finally in game now, but that was about 6 or 8 months after, right? Bleach Soul Resonance has almost all of the amenities we can think of and is slowly dripping out more and more styles of content as we go on, pretty consistently, pretty fast paced. And we're already at the point where we're like, well, they need to add a new mode entirely. And it's like, I think they don't. And would it be cool if they did? Sure. But if you're actually looking at the way that gacha sort of bleeds out content, we're really early in this game's lifespan to be already wondering like, well, when's the next big content drop gonna drop? When are they gonna add a new element? How are they gonna get like, pump your brakes, partner. And if you're out there and you're at this point and you're like, well, I'll just stop playing, stop. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. Like, take a break. If you're already at the point where you're like, well, I'm burnt out of the cycle, just chill. Because at this point, I think the characters being the content is sort of expected. I saw someone saying characters can't just be the content right now. And it's like, yeah, they can. The game, in total, we have 4 characters that are premium. The characters can still be the content, I think. I don't know. I think that's pretty reasonable to say. But yeah. Hopefully this makes sense. Hopefully this rant makes sense. Again, just to cap this off so no one can be like, well, you know, you're just like glazing. I think it's a mistake not to drop a strike unit. I've been saying that. I said that when Aizen dropped. I'm pretty sure I was the first person to, like, on a content level to really just be like, why aren't they helping Strike? Strike is the worst color by far. You know, I said, actually, it was when Gin dropped as well. I said they should be buffing Strike because at least Thrust has Tozen in Ikaku. Like, I was there. Trust me, I was there. But, you know, this is just a little bit of a rambly video right before Kenpachi comes out. As you can see right here, expect the next video to be sort of delayed because I will be obviously dropping a pull video for Kenpachi. So we'll have to get to those, and then we'll start doing like showcases and all that, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to be really hyped because I love Kenpachi. If you're waiting for a strike DPS, just skip him. Honestly, I don't. My prediction is that Kenpachi won't be so crazy that you literally won't be able to use Bankai Ichigo anymore. If you're a free-to-play player, you need to be competing within your bracket. You know what I mean? When I get top 50, when I get top 70, I'm like, hell yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's sick. I'm not going for top 1. I don't need Kenpachi to compete with people who have Kenpachi whaled. Like, you could probably still use Bankai Ichigo and place top 70 or whatever. You know, look at the characters that I have gear on. You know, when I do a lot of my runs, I mean, my strike team outperformed my spirit team, and my Komamura's gear looks like this. You're gonna be all right. You're gonna be okay. It's okay. They can drop dupes of characters. I promise you, of colors rather. They can drop dupes. I promise you. But with all that being said, like the video, subscribe to the club. We all go make it, and peace.